welcome back to the 5th week of Project 15. On this week, we're reading Mark chapter 7 from verses 1 to 23. Make sure you're reading. I can see if you're not. Pause now to read. You better be reading the verse. I can see you.
G'day teenagers. Well, Mark chapter 7 is probably the most difficult reading we've had up until this point. So stick with me, because a lot probably didn't make sense to you when you were reading, but stick with me and I promise I'll do my best to explain it. So in Mark chapter 7, we encounter Jesus having a debate with an ultra group of religious people called the Pharisees. The Pharisees were an extremely zealous and ultra-religious group. They believed everything in the Bible, but they went to the extra level to not only do the things in the Bible, but to make sure that they were doing things in addition to what the Bible had to say. Now, that's a simplified way of looking at it, and it's a bit more complicated than that. But they had all of these additional rules and all of these additional regulations and teachings that their Pharisaic leaders had handed down to them over the years, and they followed them to the extreme. They had extreme rules around what you could eat, how you had to ceremonially wash your hands before having food, how you would tithe and give money to God. So they were really ultra religious and ultra extreme. So the biggest problem the Pharisees had was, in their attempt to be really religious, their hearts weren't right. And maybe you have met people like that before, where they pretend to be really religious, they pretend to be really good Christians and really good followers of God, but their heart's not right. And often their behavior and their attitude doesn't match what they confess to be. And that was what the Pharisees were like. They were extremely zealous and extremely strict, but on the inside, their hearts weren't right. Yes, they did a lot of rules and they followed a lot of regulations, but their hearts weren't right. They pretended to be good people for everybody around them to see. They pretended to fast. They pretended to pray, but their hearts weren't really in it. And this is what Jesus criticizes them for. And it's quite an extensive debate that he has with them. But I just want to draw you to the last section of what happens after the debate. Because Jesus talks about being clean and being unclean. And people in Jesus' day, the Jewish people, believed that in order to approach God, if you wanted to be in God's presence, you had to be clean. And you had to really, your soul had to be clean, and you had to follow all of the rules that God had assigned. Now, what Jesus was saying is, when he came into this world, through his death and his resurrection, he cleans us of all of our sins. And God, yes, he wants us to do the right thing. He wants us to behave as true followers of him. But he wants us to see that our relationship with him is more than just how we behave or what we do. It's about our heart. Do we truly love God? Do we truly follow God? Do we truly seek after him? The Pharisees were good at making up all of these rules. They were good at making up rules around what you could eat, what you couldn't eat, how you washed yourself, how you washed your hands and cleaned yourself before prayer. They were really good at making up rules about how you sacrificed, how you went into the marketplace and tithed. But their hearts just weren't right. And this is what Jesus says to them. He says, "Don't you understand? Can't you see that the food you put in your body cannot defile you? So the food you eat cannot make you unclean." You know, in a lot of religious systems, there are rules about what you can eat and what kinds of foods you can and can't eat. And Jesus says, those things are not what is important. What's important is your heart. And he says, it is what comes from the inside that defiles you. For from within, out of a person's heart, comes evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, wickedness, deceit, lustful desires, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these vile things come from within. They are what defiles you. So Jesus' main point, and this is the takeaway I want you to remember from chapter 7, is Jesus and God cares about your heart. Yes, our behavior is important. It's important that we're not practicing sexual immorality, that we're not cursing, that we're not swearing, that we're not fighting with our family and friends, that we love our neighbor and we love God. Yes, all of those things are important. But what matters is not doing those things just to show off to the world and just to show off to everyone around you. What really matters is, do you truly love God? If you truly love God and you truly follow God, your behaviors will follow. So teenagers, thanks so much for joining us here today. Now let's go into our 7 minutes of prayer, and we'll see you next time.